こんにちは。日本語コーチのチェロ先生です。Welcome to another video. On this video, we will be looking into the script and explanation. So, let's get into it.
例、
男の人と女の人が会社で話しています。女の人はこれからどうしますか？
じゃあ、すみませんが、この封筒に200円の切手を貼って出してください。あ、切手はその机の中にあります。
はい、わかりました。女の人はこれからどうしますか？
はい、so the answer is 2. Let's look at the scenario. It was 男の人と女の人が会社で話して。こんにちは。日本語コーチのチェロ先生です。Welcome to another video. On this video, we will be looking into the script and explanation. So, let's get into it.
例、
男の人と女の人が会社で話しています。女の人はこれからどうしますか？
じゃあ、すみませんが、この封筒に200円の切手を貼って出してください。あ、切手はその机の中にあります。
はい、わかりました。女の人はこれからどうしますか？
はい、so the answer is 2. Let's look at the scenario. It was 男の人と女の人が会社で話しています。So a man and a woman are talking at a company, right? 会社で means a workplace at a company. So they work together. And the question we need to keep in mind was 女の人はこれからどうしますか？ What will the woman do from now? Meaning from the moment after they finish this, right? This conversation. どうしますか? What will she do? これから。Okay. The conversation, the script, A says, the man says, じゃあ、すみませんが、この封筒に200円の切手を貼って出してください。So, じゃあ is like, so, meaning that they were having a conversation prior to this. すみませんが, like, I'm sorry, but, like, sorry for the inconvenience, but usually is used for, when you are about to ask for a favor, right? Which in this case, the favor would be for her to do this, to get a stamp. 切手は、stamp, right? So a 200 yen 切手, and glue it, right? 貼る、貼ってください。貼って is the verb 貼る, to glue, on an envelope. 封筒ね、封筒。So 封筒にon the envelope, please glue a 200 yen 切手, stamp, 出してください and put it out, right? 出してください, the literal translation would be put it out. However, in this case means to post, right? So to post the envelope. And then the man says, like remembering, right? 切手は the stamps その机の中にあります。They are inside the desk, most likely the drawer, right? So saying you can get the stamps from the desk and then glue them and then post the envelope. And the woman says, はい、わかりました。ね? Okay, I understood. So the answer, what will the woman do after this is that she will post the letter, right? Actually, she will glue the stamp first, but as we can see here, number 4 has a picture of a stamp. However, this is like her asking, like most likely buying a stamp. Therefore, this is wrong. And number 1 and number 3, she's writing, right? You can see that she's writing something, which is not the case. She's just gluing a stamp and posting it, which is number 2. All right, let's listen one more time and read along.
例、
男の人と女の人が会社で話しています。女の人はこれからどうしますか？
じゃあ、すみませんが、この封筒に200円の切手を貼って出してください。 切手はその机の中にあります。
はい、わかりました。女の人はこれからどうしますか？
1番、
先生が学生に話しています。学生ははじめに何をしますか？
今日は日本の建物について勉強します。クラスで勉強する前にパソコンで調べてみましょう。それから図書館に行って必要な本を借りてください。そして教室に戻って話し合います。
学生ははじめに何をしますか？
はい、2番. The answer is 3. So let's look at the scenario. It was 先生が学生に話しています。So the teacher, 先生が学生に to the students 話しています is talking. So the teacher is talking to the students. This is not a conversation, it's a one way, right? So the question was 学生ははじめに何をしますか? So it's very important when you hear はじめに because here we want to know what will the students do first. はじめに means first. So it can get quite tricky, you know. So keep in mind that we want to find out what they will do first. And actually the pictures are quite easy to scan because they are different situations, right? But anyway, let's look at the script from the teacher. He says, 今日は日本の建物について勉強します。Today, 今日は、勉強します。We will study について about 日本の建物、Japanese buildings, right? Buildings from Japan. So today they are gonna study, learn about Japanese buildings. And then he carries on saying, クラスで勉強する前にパソコンで調べてみましょう。So, before we study, 勉強する前に in the classroom, クラスで let's 見ましょう。調べる let's research with the computer ね、パソコンで。So before we study in the classroom, let's use a computer and do some research. That's what the teacher is saying. So this is our answer already, right? What will the students do first? Hajime ni, basically they will get on the computers and do a research. Therefore, number 3 is the answer. He carries on by saying, それから図書館に行って必要な本を借りてください. So after that, ね、それから図書館 library 行って go ね。So after that, please go to the library and 借りてください please borrow or please ね、get a book 本ね。必要な means necessary, meaning if you need any books, if any books are necessary for your after you do your research, go to the library and get them. And then he carries on saying, そして教室に戻って話し合います. So after that, everybody come back to the classroom. 教室に戻って話し合います. So we will talk together. ね、話 comes from 話す to talk, and 会います is like 会う、ね、to gather. So 話し合う is basically to have a gathering where we will be talking. So that would be 話し合います would be actually the picture number 1, right? You can see that they are sitting down and talking. And picture number 4 is then at the library. And picture number 2 most likely is right now as the teacher is telling them what to do. So you see it can get quite tricky because basically all of the pictures are covered. But again, hajime ni, what will they do first is number 3. All right, let's listen one more time and read along. Let's go.
1番、
先生が学生に話しています。学生ははじめに何をしますか？
今日は日本の建物について勉強します。クラスで勉強する前に パソコンで調べてみましょう。それから図書館に行って必要な本を借りてください。そして教室に戻って話し合います。
学生ははじめに何をしますか？
2番、
本屋で女の人が雑誌を頼んでいます。女の人は何を書きますか？この雑誌、毎月お願いしたいんですが。
はい、じゃあ紙にお名前と電話番号を書いてください。入ったら電話しますから。
そうですか。お金はどうしたらいいですか？
その時でいいですよ。
女の人は何を書きますか？
はい、2番. The answer is 1. So let's look at the scenario. It was 本屋で女の人が雑誌を頼んでいます。So 本屋 is and 女の人が雑誌 is a magazine. 頼んでいます。頼んでいます comes from the verb 頼む, which is to ask, right? In this case, though, it will be translated as order, to order, right? So the woman wants, well, she's 頼んでいます, so she's ordering a magazine at a bookstore. That would be a natural translation here, okay? But again, 頼む is like please, when you ask somebody for something. Now, the question was, 女の人は何を書きますか? What will the woman write? 書きます. Okay? So let's look at the script. The woman first says, この雑誌、毎月お願いしたいんですが, so is just getting the person's attention, right? Like, excuse me, kind of. この雑誌 is this magazine. 毎月 every month. お願いしたい is like, I would like to do the favor, to ask the favor. Meaning that she wants to order this magazine every month, right? That's what she's saying. Excuse me, but I would like to get to order this magazine every month. And the man says, はい、じゃあ、この紙にお名前と電話番号を書いてください. He's like, yes, じゃあ, like in that case, in this piece of paper, この紙にyour name, お名前と電話番号, phone number, 書いてください. Please write. So he says, okay, so in that case, please write your name and your phone number on this paper. And 入ったら電話しますから. So 入ったら comes from the verb 入る, which means to enter. However, in here, he's talking about the books, meaning that when the books enter the store, meaning when they get delivered to the store, to the bookstore, we will call you. ね、電話しますから. Okay? And the woman says, そうですか. Oh, is that so? お金はどうしたらいいですか? What should I do about the money? Regarding the money, meaning, should I pay it now in advance? And the man says, その時でいいですよ. You can pay at that time, meaning when you come and collect them, right? When they get delivered. その時 is at that time. And いいですよ is like, that's fine, that's all right. Okay? So she needs to write her name and phone number. So that's why picture 1 is the correct one, right? Picture 2 is her name and the address. Picture 4 is phone number and the address. And picture 3 most likely is the name of the magazine, Gekko Nihongo, right? It's a Japanese magazine. So that's why number 1 was the correct answer. Let's listen one more time and read along.
2番、
本屋で女の人が雑誌を頼んでいます。女の人は何を書きますか？この雑誌、毎月お願いしたいんですが。
はい、じゃあこの紙にお名前と電話番号を書いてください。入ったら電話しますから。
そうですか。お金はどうしたらいいですか？
その時でいいですよ。
女の人は何を書きますか？
3番、
テレビでアナウンサーが話しています。出かける人は何を持ったらいいですか？
では、明日の天気をお伝えします。朝から雨で気温も上がりません。寒い一日になりそうです。特に夕方から冷えますので、一枚着るものを持ってお出かけください。夜には雨が雪になるところもありそうです。
出かける人は何を持っていけばいいですか？
はい、3番. The answer is 1. Let's look at the scenario. It was テレビでアナウンサーが話しています。So テレビで is in the television. Announcer is, like a news anchor. In this case, we're talking about the weather. So it's like, a weather forecast person. And 話しています is talking, right? And the important question is 出かける人は何を持っていけばいいですか？出かける人 people that will go out, right? Get out, 出かける。何を what 持っていけばいいですか？ Should they take with them? 持っていく is to grab and go, to take with you, right? So いいですか is like what should ね、いけばいいですか is like what should they take with them、when they go out? The people that are planning to go out. Okay, so let's look at the script. The man says, では明日の天気をお伝えします。では I was like, so I will tell you, I will inform you the weather forecast for tomorrow. ね、明日の means tomorrow. 天気 is weather. And お伝えします is a polite way of the verb 伝えます。ね、伝えます、伝える is to inform. お伝えします is the o verb plus しますね is a more formal way of saying that. And then he carries on by saying 朝から雨で気温も上がりません。So 朝から means from the morning. 雨で means it's raining, it will be raining. 気温 is temperature. も上がりません meaning that the temperature will also not increase, meaning that it will, be cold, right? So the mo here is a relation with the ame. So it's raining, and on top of that, the temperature will not increase. So that's the kind of nuance with the mo. Kion mo agarimasen. And he says, 寒い一日になりそうです. So it looks like it will be a cold day. 寒い一日 is a cold day. そうです. If you haven't learned this yet, the なりそう is the verb ね plus そうです is like it looks like, it can also be translated as rumor says, is based on some information. You think that something's gonna happen. That's the idea of 何々そうですね. So in this case, based on their weather forecast, it will be a cold day, right? 寒い一日になりそうです。特に夕方から冷えますので、especially 特に夕方、from the evening, right? から from the evening 冷えます、ね。It will get colder, like chilly ので、so 上に一枚着るものを持ってお出かけください。This here is our answer. Now it's kind of difficult actually. I would say that this is even like a N4 question because let's go back to the question. It was 出かける人は何を持っていけばいいですかね? What should the people take with them when they go out? And here it says because it's gonna get chilly, ね, colder from the evening, 上に一枚着るもの、ね, so 持ってください。持って出かけてください。お出かけください。So take with you, if you are going out, take with you 上に一枚着るもの。着るもの is to connect. もの means object, which in this case we're talking about a piece of clothing that you can wear. 着る。 Ichimai means one, like a piece of clothing, and ue ni is on top of, right? So it's tricky because ue ni ichimai kiru mono, we are talking about a piece of clothing, most likely a jacket or a coat that you can wear on top of what you already wearing, right? So it is a kind of a higher level, which is why I believe it would be more like towards N4 level. Anyway, please remember, ue ni ichimai kiru mono means something that you can wear on top of what you're wearing. Okay, so that is our answer, which is number one, right? Umbrella, because it will be raining, so all of the pictures have an umbrella, but a jacket or a coat is what they refer here as ue ni ichimai kiru mono. Okay, number two is a hat, does not really work. Number four, a pair of socks, also not relevant. Number three could be because it's boots for the rain, but again, we're talking about something that you can wear. Therefore, number one was our answer, right? And just to finish here, he says, Yoru ni wa ame ga yuki ni naru tokoro mo arisou desu. By the way, I forgot to say, odekake kudasai is also a polite way of dekakete kudasai, right? It's the same as otsutae shimasu. O verb plus something, so odekake kudasai. But translating here now, yoru ni wa ame ga yuki ni naru tokoro mo arisou desu. So one more time, we have the arisou desu, nanisou desu. It looks like, so it looks like there are gonna be some places, tokoro, where rain, ame, will turn into snow, yuki ni naru, ne? So at night, yoru ni wa. So we're gonna have some places, it looks like at some places, the rain will eventually turn into snow. That is what he's saying before he finishes the announcement. All right, so it is quite tricky, I would say, with all the I think the wording here was difficult. So let's one more time and pay close attention to the wording. Okay, let's go.
3番、
テレビでアナウンサーが話しています。出かける人は何を持っていけばいいですか？
では、明日の天気をお伝えします。朝から雨で気温も上がりません。寒い一日になりそうです。特に夕方から冷えますので、上に1枚着るものを持ってお出かけください。夜には雨が雪になるところもありそうです。
出かける人は何を持っていけばいいですか？
4番、
女の人が話しています。カバンをどこに置きますか？カバンはベッドのそばに置いてください。あ、小さい方は机の上にお願いします。カバンをどこに置きますか？
はい、4番, the answer is 2. Let's look at the scenario. The scenario was 女の人が話しています。So a woman is talking. カバンをどこに置きますか？カバン means bag, どこ means where, 置きますか is the verb 置く which means to put, to place, right? So basically it would be where will the bag be placed, be put, right? That is the idea. So it's only one person talking, so A says, カバンはベッドのそばに置いてください。Meaning, is like, well, kind of thinking, right? 置いてください. So please put the bags, カバンはベッドのそば, meaning next to the bed, by the side of the bed. Meaning that it would be either number 1, number 2, or number 3, right? Number 1, number 2, or number 4. Picture 3, actually both bags are on top of the desk, so that is out. And then the next line will be our deciding factor, which is realizes that there are 2 bags. She says, 小さい方は机の上にお願いします. So chisai means small, ho actually means direction, but in this case, it's referring to the small bag. So in English would be translated as, oh, the small one, meaning the small bag. Tsukue no ue, on top of the desk, onegai shimasu, please. Ne? So here she doesn't say oite kudasai, but onegai shimasu has the meaning of please put or please leave the small bag on top of the desk. So therefore, number 1 and number 4 pictures are wrong, and number 2 is the correct one, where the big bag is by the bed and the small bag is on top of the desk. All right, let's listen one more time before we go to the next question.
4番、
女の人が話しています。カバンをどこに置きますか？カバンはベッドのそばに置いてください。あ、小さい方は机の上にお願いします。カバンをどこに置きますか？
5番、
会社で男の人と女の人が話しています。男の人は仕事が終わってから何をしますか？
その雑誌、ちょっと見てもいいですか？
ええ、どうぞ。
これ、どこで買ったんですか？駅前の本屋にはなかったんだけど。
そうでしょう。私、予約して買ったのよ。
そうですか。隣のビルの本屋にあるかな？
さあ、どうかしら。
帰りに行ってみます。これ、ありがとうございました。
男の人は仕事が終わってから何をしますか？
はい、5番. The answer is 3. Let's look at the script. The scenario first was 会社で男の人と女の人が話しています。So, at the company or at a workplace, a man and a woman talking. And the question was, 男の人は仕事が終わってから何をしますか？ So, what will the man do? 男の人は何をしますか？仕事が終わってから、after he finishes working. Okay, so 終わってから is from the moment that he's done, that he finished his work. 仕事が終わってから。Okay, so what would the man do as soon as he finishes working? And then the dialogue, we have a person says, その雑誌ちょっと見てもいいですか? So the man is saying, oh, can I have a look? Now, can I see that magazine? Right? And then B says, どうぞ. Like, yes, of course. And the man says, これどこで買ったんですか? Like, where did you buy this? Where did you get this? Right? これ this どこで where 買ったんですか? 買った is the past tense of 買うね、買った. And the ですかね, the ですか here is basically emphasize, and in this case we are emphasizing the fact that he's surprised that the woman was able to buy it, right? And here's the reason why he's surprised. He says, 駅前の本屋になかったんだけど、ね? Like, なかった is there was none, right? けど is but, 本屋 is bookstore, 駅前の is in front of the station. So this means that he actually was looking for that magazine at a bookstore in front of the station, but there was none left, right? So I looked in front of the bookstore in front of there was none. So where did you get it? That's his question. And then she says, そうでしょ? That's right. 私予約して買ったのよ. Like, I bought 買ったのよ. Because I did 予約. 予約 means to reserve. So meaning that, oh, I bought it by reserving it. And I got it because I reserved. I made a reservation. Then the man says, そうですか? Oh, is that so? 隣のビルの本屋にあるかな? So it's like, oh, かな is like, do you think maybe, possibly, there, and then he's saying maybe do you think that maybe they have it, like the magazine in the bookstore, tonari no biru, next to our building, right? Most likely this biru, he's referring to the building where they are, right? The workplace. Tonari no biru no honya ni aru kana? And the woman says, sa do kashira. Do kashira means like, who knows, kind of, like, I'm not sure, who knows. And then the man says, kairi ni itte mimasu. Ne, itte mimasu is I will try to go, kairi ni, on my way home. So this is our answer, right? What will the man do when he's working? He will try to go on his way home. To go where? To the bookstore next to their building. So therefore, number 3 is the man going to a bookstore. That is our correct answer, right? And then he says, kore arigatou gozaimashita, meaning that he is giving back the magazine that he just borrowed, right? They say, oh, thank you. Here you go. Thank you very much, right? So that is our answer, number 3. Number 1 is wrong because, he's just pointing, right? Which could be actually what is happening right now when he sees the magazine, right? Number 2, most likely she would give him the magazine or he got it, so which is. And number 4, she's giving him the magazine. So yes, what the man will do when he's done with work, he will go to the bookstore. So let's listen one more time and read along.
5番、
会社で男の人と女の人が話しています。男の人は仕事が終わってから何をしますか？
その雑誌、ちょっと見てもいいですか？
ええ、どうぞ。
これ、どこで買ったんですか？駅前の本屋にはなかったんだけど。
そうでしょう。私、予約して買ったのよ。
そうですか。隣のビルの本屋にあるかな。
さあ、どうかしら。
帰りに行ってみます。これ、ありがとうございました。
男の人は仕事が終わってから何をしますか？
6番、
郵便局で女の人が話しています。女の人はどの切手を買いましたか？これはいくらの切手がいりますか？
はい。130円です。
じゃあ50円のを1枚ください。
80円のはお持ちですか？
はい、あります。50円のだけで結構です。女の人はどの切手を買いましたか？
はい、6番。The answer is 3. The scenario was 郵便局で女の人が話しています。So a woman is talking at 郵便局。郵便局 means post office. And the question was 女の人はどの切手を買いましたか？ Which stamp, ね、切手 means stamp, did the woman buy? 買いました is the past tense of 買いますね。So which one did she buy? Alright? So let's look at the script A. The person says, who is the woman, she says, これはいくらの切手がいりますか？ So これは most likely is the envelope or the package that she is, trying to post. And いくら means how much. So 切手 is a stamp. いりますか means necessary. So basically, as she give, the envelope, she's asking how much do I need, of a stamp to post this, right? In Japan, they would weight the package or the envelope and then tell you how much you need, which is probably what he does here. And he says, はい、130円です. Meaning, yes, you need 130 yen worth of stamp, right? And then the woman says, じゃあ、50円の1枚ください. Okay, so in that case, じゃあ、please give me one stamp of 50 yen, right? 1枚 means one, ne? 枚 is the way that we count paper. So please give me a stamp of 50 円. And then the man asks, just to confirm, 80円のお持ちですか? do you have one of 80 yen? And the reason why he's asking this because she needs a total of 130, right? So 80 円のはお持ちですか？お持ちですか is the polite way of 持っていますかね、持ちますか And then she says, はい、あります。Meaning, yes, I have. She has the 80 yen 切って。And then she says, このだけで結構です。結構です means it's enough. I'm good with only one ね、だけ of 50 yen. Alright? Therefore, which kite the woman bought was number 3, a 50 yen kite stamp. Alright? Let's listen one more time and read along.
6番、
郵便局で女の人が話しています。女の人はどの切手を買いました？これはいくらの切手がいりますか？
はい、130円です。
じゃあ50円のを1枚ください。
80円のはお持ちですか？
はい、あります。50円のだけで結構です。女の人はどの切手を買いましたか？
7番、
バスの会社の人が話しています。お客さんははじめに何をしますか？
今日はバスで東京を回ります。バスには屋根がありません。景色はよく見えますが、とても寒いです。これから帽子を配りますから、それをかぶってバスに乗ってください。では、一番初めの人から。
お客さんははじめに何をしますか？
はい、7番. The answer is 4. Let's look at the scenario. It was バスの会社の人が話しています。So the person from the company from the bus, right? So most likely this is like a traveling agency, you know, so the person that maybe perhaps the tour guide, right, that works for the company that is running the bus is talking, okay? And the question is, お客様ははじめに何をしますか? What will the guests, お客様 is the guests, most likely the people that are doing the sightseeing, what will they do first? はじめに. Remember, when it says はじめに, it's very important that you don't lose track because it will confuse you, especially when they throw at you a lot of things that are going on. We need to focus on what will the customers, the guests do first. Okay, so let's look at the script. The man says, 今日はバスで東京を回ります。Today, 今日は we will 回ります is like to go around, meaning, they will sightseeing, right? Around Tokyo by bus. バスで. Okay? And then he says, バスには屋根がありません. There is no roof on the bus, right? So it's those sightseeing buses where, it's open. And then he says, 景色はよく見えますが, like you can see very well, よく見えます. The 景色, the scenery, right? The view. However, がとても寒いです. It is very cold. とても寒いです. And then he says, これから from now, 帽子を配りますから I will 配る means to deliver, not to hand in. So he will be delivering, he will be giving some boshi hats, right? Or perhaps toques, right? And then he says, それをかぶって please wear that, right? Put it on and バスに乗ってくれ get on a bus. So most likely he will be standing in front of the door and as the people, get the hat, they wear it, put it on, and they get on the bus, right? That's the idea. And then he says, では、一番初めの人から meaning, so, ね let's start. Please come, からね from the first person in the line, ね一番初めの人から. So basically, they're going to be lining up and he's going to be giving, right? And that's why number 4 is the correct answer. What will the customers do first? They will get the hat and wear it. And then they will get on the bus, right? Number 1 is the guests getting on a bus, right? It could be tricky, but they will put the hats on first. Okay, so let's listen one more time before we move to the next question.
7番、
バスの会社の人が話しています。お客さんははじめに何をしますか？
今日はバスで東京を回ります。バスには屋根がありません。景色はよく見えますが、とても寒いです。これから帽子を配りますから、それをかぶってバスに乗ってください。では、一番初めの人から。
お客さんははじめに何をしますか？
8番、
映画館の入り口で男の人が話しています。男の人は6時まで何をしますか？
次の映画は何時からですか？
6時からです。
中に入れますか？
いえ、まだ入れません。もう少しお待ちください。
飲み物はここで飲んでもいいですか？
あちらに椅子があります。あちらでお願いします。男の人は6時まで何をしますか？
はい、8番. The answer is 1. So let's look at the scenario. It was 映画館の入り口で男の人が話しています。So a man is talking 入り口で、ね、at an entrance of the 映画館 the theater. So basically the man is talking at an entrance of a movie theater. Okay? 映画館. And the question is 男の人は6時まで何をしますか？ What will the man do 6時まで until 6 p.m. Okay? So let's look at the dialogue. Person A says, who is the man, he says, 次の映画は何時からですか？ From what time 何時からですか is the next 次の movie. So from what time is the next movie? What time does the next movie start? That's the question. And the person who works at the movie theater says 6時からです from 6 p.m. And then A says 中に入れますか？ Can I go inside? Inside the venue, inside the theater. And then she says いいえ、まだ入れません No, we cannot go inside yet. もう少しお待ちください Please wait a little longer ね。もう少し is a little more. So please wait a little more. And then the man asks, 飲み物はここで飲んでもいいですか？ Can I drink my drink here? Can I finish drinking my drink here? 飲み物 is any beverage. And then the woman says, あちらに椅子があります。There are chairs over there. あちらでお願いします。Please do it there. Meaning, please finish your drink there. Please have your drink there. Right? So that's why, what will the man do until 6 p.m.? Basically, he needs to wait for the movie, right? To start so he can get in. And then he needs to wait and he will be finishing his drink. So number 1 is the answer because he will be sitting in the chairs that are over there and he's holding his glass, right? His drink. So that is your answer. Okay? So let's listen one more time and read along.
8番、
映画館の入り口で男の人が話しています。男の人は6時まで何をしますか？
次の映画は何時からですか？
6時からです。
中に入れますか？
いえ、まだ入れません。もう少しお待ちください。
飲み物はここで飲んでもいいですか？
あちらに椅子があります。あちらでお願いします。男の人は6時まで何をしますか？
問題2、
問題2では、はじめに質問を聞いてください。それから話を聞いて、問題用紙の1から4の中から一番いいものを一つ選んでください。
例、
女の人が店で話しています。サンダルはどこにありますか？すみません。サンダルはどこにありますか？はい。入り口の左の棚です。あ、こっちからと逆ですね。そうです。ありがとう。サンダルはどこにありますか？
Hi, so the answer was number one. Okay, the scenario was 女の人が店で話しています。The woman is talking at the store, 店で right? And the question was サンダルはどこにありますか？ Where are the sandals? ね、サンダルは sandals どこに where ありますか？ are, okay? So A says, who is the woman with the long hair, right? Most likely the customer, right? She says, すみません。サンダルはどこにありますか? So excuse me, where are the sandals? And then the woman behind the girl who works at the store says, はい、入り口の左の棚です。ね。Yes, they are ね at the shelf. 棚 is like the shelf. On the left side of the entrance ね。入り口の左。ね。So they are on the from the entrance 入り口左の、shelf. So they are on the shelf on the left, right? But she says, like, oh, wait, from here, ね、こっちから見ると、from, if we see from where we are now, meaning that counter at the back, 逆ですね。So 逆 means opposite. So that means that from there, where they look, is not on the left side, but is on the right side, is the right shelf. So that brings us to number one as, and then the woman says, そうですか. Oh, is that so? ありがとう. Thank you. So this is very confusing because, to be honest with you, I don't know you, but for me, like, where is the entrance? You're not sure if it's there, right? And then you have these things on the floor, which most likely there are baskets. I'm not sure what they are. Um, but anyway, I think what saved us in terms of, kind of choosing the most likely to be answer would be the fact that she says, yeah, こちらから見ると逆ですね. So if from when you look from where they stand, I think that is the clearer position that we can get from this. All right. But it is a tricky one. So if you got it wrong, please don't feel bad about it.
例、
女の人が店で話しています。サンダルはどこにありますか？すみません。サンダルはどこにありますか？はい。入り口の左の棚です。あ、こっちから見ると逆ですね。そうですか。ありがとう。サンダルはどこにありますか？
Let's go to the next one.
1番、
会社で男の人と女の人が話しています。女の人は夏休みにどこへ行きたいと言っていますか？
今年の夏休みはどこかへ行きますか？
去年は海へ行ったけど、今年はまだ決めてないのよ。
海もいいけど、山もいいですよ。僕は山を歩くのが好きなので、景色もいいし。
私は歩くのはあまり好きじゃないけど、子供は連れて行ってあげたいわ。子供と一緒に歩ける山があったら教えてくれない？
ええ、ありますよ。
本当？じゃあ今度教えて。女の人は夏休みにどこへ行きたいと言っていますか？
Hi, so the answer is one. Okay, let's look at the scenario. It was 会社で男の人と女の人が話しています。会社で at the company, right, at the workplace, a man and a woman are talking. Okay, And the question was, 女の人は夏休みにどこへ行きたいと言っていますか? This is a very long one, to catch. But let's break it down. So, 女の人は the woman 夏休み summer break 休みに the summer break or the summer break どこへ行きたい where wants to go, right? Where does she want to go, the woman? どこへ行きたいと言っていますか is saying. So translating everything would be, where is the woman saying that she would like to go for her summer vacation, summer break? Okay, a huge one to keep in mind. But when you look at the pictures, it's kind of easy to scan it. So to scan them. So hopefully you would get it. Well, let's look at the script. The A person says, 今年の夏休みはどこか行きますか? So 今年の夏休み is the summer break of this year. So this coming summer break, are you going somewhere? どこかへ行きますか? Are you going somewhere? And then B says, the woman says, は海へ行ったけど、去年 I went to the beach. 海へ行ったけど、this year まだ決めてないのよ。I have not decided yet. まだ決めてないよ。ね。のよ。And then the man says, 海もいいけど、well, the beach is also nice, but 山もいいですよ。So he's suggesting, right? The mountains are also good, you know? And why he's saying that? Because he loves the mountains. He says, 僕は山を歩くのが好きなので、景色もいいし、ね。僕は remembering that 僕 is a male version of 私ね。more casual. 僕は山を歩くのが好きなので、I like to walk on a mountain, right? Or could even be translated as climb a mountain. 景色もいいし、the view, 景色 is also beautiful, right? Meaning, oh, it's also pleasant, because of the view. And then the woman says, 私は歩くのはあまり好きじゃないけど、I don't really like walking. That's what she's saying ね。私は、歩くのは to walk あまり好きじゃない。I don't really like it. けど、but 子供は the children 連れて行ってあげたい。I would like to take my child there, meaning to this experience, to the mountains, right? So the verb te, the form tk, right? The form te of the verb plus agetai is like I want to do the favor of blah, 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 doing the action of the verb. In this case, like I would like to take my kids there, meaning to give them that experience. All right? And then she continues, 子供と一緒に歩ける山があったら教えてない? So if you know, if a mountain where you could go and walk with your child, 教えてくれない? Would you tell me? Can you tell me? Could you teach me? That would be the direct translation, but like, would you let me know? Is a better translation. So basically, because she's willing to go and take her child there, she's like, well, if you know a mountain that is easy for children to climb, let me know. ね。子供と一緒に is together. Okay? And then the man says, ありますよ. Like, yeah, oh, there are some. ね、ありますよ. And then she says, 本当? Oh, really? じゃあ, okay, in that case, 今度教えて. Teach me next time. Or a natural translation. Tell me next time. Where are these mountains? All right. So this was a difficult one because the question was huge, right? And also the dialogue is quite intense. So let's listen one more time and carefully along. Let's go.
1番、
会社で男の人と女の人が話しています。女の人は夏休みにどこへ行きたいと言っていますか？
今年の夏休みはどこかへ行きますか？
去年は海へ行ったけど、今年はまだ決めてないのよ。
海もいいけど、山もいいですよ。僕は山を歩くのが好きなので、景色もいいし。
私は歩くのはあまり好きじゃないけど、 子供は連れて行ってあげた？子供と一緒に歩ける山があったら教えてくれない？
ええ、ありますよ。
本当？じゃあ今度教えて。女の人は夏休みにどこへ行きたいと言っていますか？
2番、
女の人が電話で話しています。リンさんの部屋はどれですか？あ、リンさん？
ああ、田中さん、今どこ？
えーっと、アパートが見えてきた。2階ですよね。
2の203です。同じアパートが2つあるんですよ。壁に2って書いてあります。
リンさんの部屋はどれですか？
Hi, number two, the answer is three. Okay, so let's look at the scenario. The scenario was 女の人が電話で話しています。So the woman is talking over the phone. The question was リンさんの部屋はどれですか？どうですか？ Which one is リンさんの部屋 The room of リンさん In this case, the apartment of リンさんね。The Mr. Ring. So let's start. They were talking over the phone. So, Ring San is basically saying, oh, hey, Ring, right? And then B says, Tanaka-san. Like, oh, Tanaka, ima doko? Where now is the direct translation, but basically it's like, where are you? Where are you calling? And then she says, アパートが見えてきた。2階ですよね。She's like, oh, like, oh, well, no, I can see the buildings, the apartment buildings ね。アパートが見えてきた。ね。見えてきた。I'm able to see the buildings already. And then she confirms with him, you are on the second floor, right? Like, 2階ですよね。2階 first floor, 2階 second floor. 2階ですよね。And then he says, 2の203. So, 2の203 is the number of his apartment. And he says, 同じアパートが2つあるんですよ。There are two apartment buildings, as we can see the picture, right? And then he says, 壁に2と書いてあります。ね。壁に2って書いてあります。So, on the wall, it's written, 書いてあります。2, number 2. And so we can see, ね。So therefore, we already know our answer, right? That he's on the block 2 and on the second floor. So therefore, it's number 3. The moment that we know that he's on the second floor, then we know it's either number 1 or number 3, right? But let's listen one more time and wrong.
2番、
女の人が電話で話しています。リンさんの部屋はどれですか？あ、リンさん？
ああ、田中さん、今どこ？
アパートが見えてきた。2階ですよね。
2の203です。同じアパートが2つあるんですよ。壁に2って書いてあります。
リンさんの部屋はどれですか？
3番、
男の人と女の人が話しています。女の人の誕生日はいつですか？
ねえ、山下さん、誕生日いつ？
7月8日だけど。
本当？僕も1月4日。同じだね。
同じじゃないでしょ。あなたは1月4日。私は7月8日。
ふーん。
女の人の誕生日はいつですか？
Hi, number 3, the answer was 4. So let's look at the scenario. It was 男の人と女の人が話しています。The question was 女の人の誕生日はいつですか？ when is the birthday of the woman? ね。女の人の誕生日。誕生日 means birthday. So A says, ね、山下さん、誕生日いつ？ね。He's saying, Yamashita, Miss Yamashita, when is your birthday? ね。誕生日いつ？ And as you can notice here, he does not say itsu, he just says itsu. So this is a very casual. Most likely we will find out that his Japanese is not very good, so that's probably why they did it, in this way. But remember that we shouldn't really use this netamego, as we call it, like a very casual Japanese to talk to somebody. Yamashita-san clearly is a Japanese person, right? But anyway, Yamashita-san replies, 7月8日だけど, ne? My birthday is July the 8th, okay? And then A says, 本当? Like, oh, really? 僕も myself as well, 1月4日 ne, is January 4th. And 同じだね. Oh, we have the same birthday ね. 同じ means the same. And then she says, 同じじゃないでしょ? Like, well, it's not the same. And then she corrects him, like, あなたは you 1月4日. Your birthday is 1月4日ね. And mine, 私は7月8日. Right? So, then we can tell that his Japanese basically is not good enough to tell the difference. And then he says, which is probably he's trying to get into his brain. But if you don't know yet, this is used a lot in Inugo, N5 level test. You have to be able to tell the difference between yoka and yoka. Okay, so youka, the one that is elongated, yoka is the 8th, which is her birthday. And yoka with a small tsu, is like yoka, a little pause in between them, is the 4th. Okay, here they're really pushing because he couldn't even get the difference between ichigatsu and shichigatsu. I think that's an easy one, right? Ichigatsu January, shichigatsu is July. But yoka and yoka can be quite tricky actually, So if you are not used to it yet, please practice it before you go take your JLPT test. Let's listen one more time and pay attention to the difference between the yoka and yoka. All right, let's go.
3番、
男の人と女の人が話しています。女の人の誕生日はいつですか？
ねえ、山下さん、誕生日いつ？
7月8日だけど。
本当？僕も1月4日。同じだね。
同じじゃないでしょ。あなたは1月4日。私は7月8日。
ふーん。
女の人の誕生日はいつですか？
4番、
男の人と女の人が話しています。男の人はどうしますか？あ、雨が降ってきましたよ。
雨ですか。困ったな。傘が。
私も傘がないんです。
どうしますか？
タクシーで帰ります。一緒に帰りますか？
そうですね。私はバスがあるから、バスで帰ります。
そうですか。では失礼します。男の人はどうしますか？
Hi, the answer here is number 2. So let's look at the scenario. It was 男の人と女の人が話しています。And the question was 男の人はしますか? Right? So a man and a woman are talking. What will the man do? That's an easy one. So the conversation goes, a person says, 雨が降ってきましたよ. Like, oh, it started to rain, right? And then B says, like, really? 雨ですか? Oh, rain. 困ったな. Like, oh no. 困る is to get into trouble or a situation that is, troublesome, right? So in this case, they even say kasaga, like, oh no, my umbrella, would be something like, because it doesn't say kasaga nai, but that's the meaning, right? I don't have an umbrella. And then A says, watashi mo kasaga nai desu. I also do not have an umbrella, or I didn't bring my umbrella. And then B says, do shimasu ka? What will we do, right? And A, the woman says, taxi de kaerimasu. I will go home by taxi, right? I will grab a taxi and go home. Kaerimasu. Issho ni kaerimasu ka? Like, would you like to go with me? Share the taxi with me. Issho ni, together. The direct translation here would be, should we go home together, right? But basically the meaning is like, are you getting on a cab with me? On a taxi with me? And then he says, そうですね. Like, oh yeah. But then he says, 私はバスがあるからバスで帰ります。私は have a bus. Now the direct translation here is have a bus, but it means like there is a bus that I can take to go home. So, からバスで帰ります. I will go home by bus. And then she says, そうですか? Oh, is that so? では、失礼します. Well, in that case, bye, right? So, 失礼します here is basically a more, I wouldn't even say formal, but it's just more like a way that we use that we say goodbye for coworkers, like 失礼します, when you are excusing yourself from their presence, right? It's a more business kind of idea, 失礼します. So in this case, basically she's saying goodbye. I'm gonna go on my way, right? But that is the of the では失礼します here. Let's listen one more time long.
4番。
男の人と女の人が話しています。男の人はどうしますか？あ、雨が降ってきましたよ。
え、雨ですか。困ったな。傘が。
私も傘がないんです。
どうしますか？
タクシーで帰ります。一緒に帰りますか？
そうですね。私はバスがあるからバスで帰ります。
そうですか。では失礼します。男の人はどうしますか？
5番。
男の人と女の人が話しています。女の人はどうしますか？あ、それ読みたかった本。
そうなんですか。全部読んでないけど面白いですよ。読みますか？
いいんですか？
ええ。読み終わったら貸しますよ。来週まで待ってください。
ええ、もちろん。女の人はどうしますか？
Hi, so let's look at the situation. 男の人と女の人が話しています。So a man and woman are talking. 女の人はどうしますか? What will the woman do? Right? So A says, それ読みたかった本. Oh, that is the book that I wanted to read, right? それ is more like pointing to the book, right? And then B says, そうなんですか? Oh, is that so? Like you wanted to read. 全部読んでないけど I haven't read everything, but 面白いですよ. It's quite interesting, right? 面白い means interesting and funny. Okay, we don't know. I'm gonna go with interesting here. And then he says, 読みますか? Like, would you read it? Would you like me to, give it to you so you can read it? So basically, he's offering to lend the book to her, right? And then she says, いいんですか? Oh, is that okay? Like, would you let me read it? And then he says, yeah, of course. 読み終わったら貸しますよ. I will lend you 貸します after I finish reading ね。読み終わったら。And then 来週まで待ってください。待ってください. Please wait 来週まで until next week, right? So basically, he's gonna finish reading the book by next week and then he's gonna give it to her. So she says, もちろん, like, yes, of course, meaning, yes, I will wait for you. So that's why number two pictures is the answer where she's receiving the book. Number one, it doesn't make sense because she would be buying the book. And number three, she's giving him a book, which is not the situation. And number four is just a random, lining somewhere, right? So yes, number two was our answer. Let's listen one more time and read along.
5番、
男の人と女の人が話しています。女の人はどうしますか？あ、それ読みたかった本。
そうなんですか。全部読んでないけど、面白いですよ。読みますか？
いいんですか？
ええ、読み終わったら貸しますよ。来週まで待ってください。
ええ、もちろん。女の人はどうしますか？
6番、
女の人が話しています。男の人は明日何をしますか？明日は土曜日ですね。
今週は忙しかった。
そうですか。明日も仕事ですか？
いや、明日は休みです。
どこかへ出かけますか？
明日はうちで子供と遊び。
それはいいですね。男の人は明日何をしますか？
Hi, number six, the answer is four. Let's look at the situation. 男の人と女の人が話しています。So a man and a woman are talking, and the question was, 男の人は明日何をしますか？ What will the man do? 明日 tomorrow. Okay? So let's look at the conversation. A, the woman says, 明日は土曜日ですね。Tomorrow is Saturday. And then the man says, 今週は忙しかった。This week was very busy. 忙しい is busy. 忙しかった。And then she says, そうですか? Like, oh really? 明日も仕事ですか? Tomorrow is it work too? Meaning, are you working tomorrow as well? And he says, yup. 明日は休みですね。Nope. Tomorrow is day off. It's a holiday, right? Yes, a rest. And then she says, どこかへ出かけますか? Are you going somewhere, right? Like, are you, like, because this is day off. And then he says, 明日はうちで子供と遊びます。Tomorrow I will stay at home. うちで子供と遊びます。Play with the child. In this case, my child, right? And that is what he's doing tomorrow is our answer, right? And then she says, それはいいですね. Oh, that's nice, But yeah, so number four, we can see he's playing with his son. And that is her answer. Number three is wrong because just resting. One, he's going on a walk or something. And number two is scenario where he would be working, right? So number four it is. Let's listen one more time before we move on to our next question.
6番、
男の人と女の人が話しています。男の人は明日何をしますか？明日は土曜日ですね。
今週は忙しさ。
そうですか。明日も仕事ですか？
いや、明日は休みです。
どこかへ出かけますか？
明日はうちで子供と遊びます。
それはいいですね。男の人は明日何をしますか？
7番、
男の人と女の人が旅行の話をしています。バスに乗った後、何をしますか？
来週は少し雨が降るらしいね。
ねえ。でも旅行に行く日は電車に3時間乗って、その後バスだからあまり外を歩かないでしょ？
いや、バスの後、船に乗るんだよ。船から見る景色がすごくいいらしいから。
でも雨じゃね。昼ご飯はどこで食べるの？
バスに乗る前に食べようよ。あそこは魚が美味しいから、いい店を探して行ってみよう。
そうね。おいしいもの食べましょう。バスに乗った後、何をしますか？
Hi, and the answer is 4. So let's look at the scenario. It was 男の人と女の人が旅行の話をしています。So a man and a woman are talking about a trip. 旅行の話ね。をしている。話をする also translates as talking about. Okay? 旅行 is traveling or a trip. So a man and a woman are talking about a trip. And the question was, バスに乗った後、何をしますか？ What will they do after, 後 after they get on a bus? バスに乗る is to get on a bus, to ride a bus. 後 Okay, please be careful when you hear this atto because it's very tricky, and we will see here later how tricky this gets. But the important information that we need to get is what will they do after they get on a bus? All right, so let's go. The A person says, 来週は少し雨が降るらしいね。Next week, a little 雨が降る it will rain. Rashi. Rashi is like it looks like it's gonna rain a little bit tomorrow, next week, right? Rashi is like an information that you heard or you're not 100% sure, but it feels like. It can also be translated as rumor says, kind of. In this case, we're talking about the weather, so the weather is quite unpredictable, so it could change, right? But as per now, it looks like it's gonna rain a little bit. And then B, the woman says, 残念. Oh, is that so? That's bad, right? 残念 is like, bad or horrible, terrible. But in this case, it would be like, oh, that's bad, right? And then she says, でも、旅行に行く日は but the day that we go on a trip, 旅行に行く日は電車に3時間乗って we will get on a train for 3 hours, we will be on a train for 3 hours, 電車に3時間乗ってその後 after that, after the train, バスだから we will be on a bus だから so あまり外を歩かないでしょ We are not gonna really be walking outside でしょ No? Right? So that's what she's saying here. Meaning that it's not a big deal that it's gonna be raining. But the man says, いや、バスの後、船に乗るんだよ。ね、This is her answer if you are able to catch the バスの後ね、after the bus. It's like, yeah here means like, no, 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 right? After the bus, バスの後、船に乗るんだ。よ、ね、we will be getting on a boat, which is number 4, they are on a boat, right? 船から見る景色がすごくいいらしい。景色 is the view, so the view that we can see from the boat, from the ship, is very beautiful. So I heard. ね、らしい again, so I heard. So that's why he is not happy that it's gonna rain, right? And then the woman says, でも雨じゃね like, oh, but it's gonna be raining. And then she changed the subject actually. 昼ご飯はどこで食べるの Where are we having lunch? ね。どこで食べるの Where are we eating? 昼 lunch. And then the man says, バスに乗る前に食べようよ. Let's eat before we get on the bus. So you see, this is very tricky because it's バスの後, because バスの後, バスに乗る前に, before, right? It's just to make it tricky. But yeah, he's just saying, well, before we get on a bus, バスに乗る前に食べよう. Let's have lunch. Let's eat. あそこは魚が美味しいからね。There, meaning the destination, fish is delicious. So, いい店を探して行ってみましょう。Let's look, research and look and go for, a good お店 here means restaurant, right? To a nice restaurant where they can eat the fish. Okay? And the woman says, そうね、美味しいものを食べましょう。Like, oh yeah, let's have something delicious. But yeah, it's a long one, isn't it? And I think this is maybe one of the hardest from this test. It's too long, but and also the mai and atto, it can get quite tricky. But I hope you got the idea. But let's listen one more time and pay close attention to the conversation. All right, let's go.
7番。
男の人と女の人が旅行の話をしています。バスに乗った後、何をしますか？
来週は少し雨が降るらしいね。
残念。でも旅行に行く日は電車に3時間乗って、その後バスだからあまり外を歩くでしょ？
いや、バスの後、船に乗るんだよ。船から見る景色がすごくいいらしいから。
でも雨じゃね。昼ご飯はどこで食べるの？
バスに乗る前に食べようよ。あそこは魚が美味しいから、いい店を探して行ってみよう。
そうね。おいしいもの食べましょう。バスに乗った後、何をしか？
問題3。
問題3では、絵を見ながら質問を聞いてください。矢印の人は何と言いますか？ 1 から3の中から一番いいものを一つ選んでください。
例。
これから出かけます。何と言いますか？ 1、
行ってきます。
2、
お元気で。
3、
ではまた。
Hi, so the question was これから出かけます。何と言いますか？ So from now, これから出かけます。I will go out, right? Remember, we always have to we have to focus on the person with the arrow, right? So that man is leaving the house. 何と言いますか? What would he say? All right? So number 1 is 行ってきます。Number 2 is お元気で。And number 3 is ではまた。So the answer is number 1. Okay? 行ってきます。If you don't know this is a very Japanese expression like that you use obviously when you are home to the people that live with you, right? In this case here, the wife and the daughter. So for the man who is leaving the house, he, by saying 行ってきます, basically he says, okay, I'm on my way, I'm gonna go to work, whatever he's going, but I will come back, because we always come back to our home, right? That's the idea of the 行ってきます expression. I'm going, but I'm coming back, right? So it's comforting to know that, that person will be coming back. Number 3 is not incorrect, because basically it says, I'm going, bye-bye. But again, because he lives here, right, and he's saying goodbye to his family, it's not natural. Number 1 is still better. But if it was a friend or, somebody else, then it would be okay. And number 2 is just wrong, because it says o genki de, is like, please stay well, stay healthy, right? So it's more when you say goodbye to somebody and you wish them well. So you see, it's kind of all connected with the idea of living. But again, you have to focus on the person with the arrow, which in this case clearly is saying goodbye to his family, and he's leaving his house, where he will be coming back, right? So 行ってきます is the answer. So let's move on to the next one.
1番。
ご飯を食べました。何と言いますか？ 1、
いただきます。
2、
おいしいです。
3、
ごちそうさまでした。
Hi. So the situation was ご飯を食べました, right? 食べました is the past tense of 食べます. So finish eating, right? The boy with the arrow here, the boy or the man is done eating, right? ご飯を食べました. Finish. ご飯 can be like rice, or it can be the whole meal. In this case, I believe is the whole meal, right? So the boy, the man is done eating a full meal. 何と言いますか? What would he say? So number 1 was いただきます. Number 2 was おいしいです. And number 3 was ごちそうさまでした. And the answer was number 3, ごちそうさまでした. This is also a very Japanese expression that we say after we finish eating, right? So the point here is 食べました. He is done eating, so ごちそうさまでした is the correct answer, right? The meaning is more like, the literal meaning would be like, it was delicious. It was a delicious food meal, right? ごちそう is like something good. But it's just something that, can also be translated as thank you for this meal, thank you, I'm done. It also has, that meaning. Number 1 is wrong because itadakimasu is what we say before we start eating, right? It's like, kind of the same meaning like thank you for this meal, but that's before we start eating. And oishii desu just means like, it's good, it's delicious, right? So that would be something perhaps that the boy would say while he's eating, but not after, right? So therefore, number 3 was the correct answer. Let's move on to the next one.
2番。
座るところを探しています。何と言うか？
1、
ここ、どこですか？
2、
これ、椅子ですか？
3、
ここ、空いてますか？
Hi, so let's look together at the situation. It was 座るところを探しています。ね、探しています is I'm looking for or she's looking for in this case. ね、with the arrow is she. She's looking for what? 座るところ. Tokoro is a place to sit down. So she's looking for a seat, right? For a place to sit down. So, 何と言いますか? What would she say? Number 1 was ここどこですか? Koko means here. So this would be like, where is here? Which doesn't make much sense, so it's wrong. Number 2 is 椅子ですか? Kore is like this, pointing at something, right? 椅子ですか? Like, is it a chair, right? Which also clearly it is a seat, so it doesn't make sense. And number 3 is ここ空いてますか? Like, 空いてますか is like, is this open? Aku is like empty, right? So basically she's saying, is this seat empty, right? Is it free? And therefore our answer is number 3, right? ここ空いてますか would be the proper phrase that she would say to ask about the seat. All right, let's move on to the next one.
3番。
レストランでお店の人を呼びます。何と言いますか？ 1、
すみません。
2、
ありがとう。
3、
こんにちは。
Hi, number 3. So the situation was レストランでお店の人を呼びます。So at a restaurant, レストランでお店の人, the person who works at the store, in this case the restaurant, 呼びます. 呼びます. The verb 呼ぶ is to call, right? So basically you're calling somebody. In this case, the boy is calling the person, the woman that works at the restaurant, right? So 何と言いますか? What would he say? Number 1, すみません. Number 2, ありがとう. Number 3, こんにちは, right? And the answer is すみません. すみません is excuse me, right? Or I'm sorry, but in this case it's also used to get someone's attention. At the restaurant, to say すみません, like I'm here, can you come here, right? すみません. Arigato, as we know, means thank you. So in this case, it doesn't make sense. And number 3, it's not correct in terms of meaning, right? Konnichiwa, like, but you don't say that, right? To a server at a restaurant. If you want to call them, you say すみません. You don't say konnichiwa. All right? You could say konnichiwa after they come to you and, but we don't really do it. But yeah, that was the answer. Let's move on to the next one.
4番。
仕事が終わって家に帰りました。何と言いますか？ 1、
おかえりなさい。
2、
ただいま。
3、
こんにちは。
Hi, so let's look at the situation. It was 仕事が終わって家に帰りました。So the work 仕事終わって finished, right? 家に帰りました。帰りました is the past tense of 帰る so went home. 帰る is to go home. So the man went home. ね、家に帰る went back home after finishing work, right? So he's going home after he's done with work. You see that he's entering the house, right? There's a door behind him. And 何と言いますか? What would he say, right? What would he say to this woman who most likely is his wife? He would say, おかえりなさい or ただいま or こんにちは. And the answer is ただいま, right? This is also a very typical Japanese expression, actually, おかえり and ただいま, right? おかえり or おかえりなさい is the expression that the person who is at the house tell the person who is coming back. So in this case, in this situation, from the picture, actually, the woman, if the arrow was on her, she would say おかえりなさい, which can be translated as welcome back, right? But the person who arrives at the house after leaving, says ただいま, which could be translated as I'm home, but it's just a Japanese thing. ただいま, おかえり, and vice versa. All right? So こんにちは, again, it's not incorrect, right? But you don't say that to your husband, to your wife, to your partner walking back home, right? Oh, good afternoon, right? They don't say that. It's more like a, oh, welcome back kind of meaning. All right? So let's move on to the next one.
5番。
部屋の中に入りたいです。何と言いますか？
1、
入ってください。
2、
入りますか？
3、
入ってもいいですか？
Hi. So let's look at the situation. It was 部屋の中に入りたいです. So the person with the arrow, the woman, wants to enter. 入りたい is wanna enter, right? Wants to enter 中, inside 部屋, the room, right? So the male is in this room and the woman is basically asking permission to come in, right? Inside the room. So 何と言いますか? What would she say? Number one option was 入ってください. Number two was 入りますか? And number three was 入ってもいいですか? And the answer was number three, right? 入ってもいいですか? いいですか is asking for permission, right? Is that okay? 入ってもね、いいですか? Is it okay if I enter? So a more natural translation would be, is it okay? Is it fine if I come in? Right? Can I come in? That would be the 入ってますか? Number one, 入ってください. What the man tells the woman, right? Oh, please, どうぞどうぞ入ってください. Please come in, right? So therefore it's wrong because the arrow is on her. And 入りますか is something that it can be translated as like, shall we go inside? So a good example is, for example, imagine we have two people walking in front of a pub or a store. They're like, that looks good. Should we try? Should we try to go in and have a pint or do something? So that would be like 入りますか? Like, shall we go in? That is the 入りますか? It's kind of an invitation, okay? But again, it does not match this picture. All right? I hope you got it. So let's move on to the next one.
6番。
先生の言うことがよく聞こえませんでした。何と言いますか？ 1、
すみません。もう一度お願いします。
2、
すみません。また言ってください。
3、
すみません。一度聞きました。
Hi, number 6. The situation was 先生の言うことがよく聞こえませんでした. I couldn't really hear, in this case the boy, right, with the arrow, couldn't really hear, 聞 えませんかよく very well what the sensei, the teacher said. ね、先生の言うこと is what the teacher is saying. So the boy could not understand quite well what the teacher was saying. So 何と言いますか? What would he say? Number one would be すみません。もう一度お願いします。Number two would be すみません。また言ってください。And number three would be すみません。一度聞きました。So the answer is number one, right? すみません。もう一度お願いします。Which means すみません like I'm sorry. This is the apologizing. Sorry, right? すみません。すみません。I'm sorry for the inconvenience. But もう一度 one more time お願いします。Please. So this is tricky because it doesn't say もう一度言ってください, right? Probably you memorize by もう一度言ってください. Say it one more time. And here it's just もうお願いします. Please do it again, right? もう一度お願いします. But he's saying, can you explain it one more time, right? Number two, すみません。また言ってください. This is very sneaky actually because in here you see the kanji is to go, but obviously if it's a listening test, you could think that the 言ってください is not the kanji, is not the meaning of to go, is the meaning of say, right? 言ってください is please say it. But the deciding point here is また, right? Because if it was すみません、もう一度言ってください that would be okay. But また言ってください is like また行きましょう is like let's go one more time, right? So for example, oh, this restaurant was amazing. Well, that restaurant was amazing. Let's go there again. ね、また行きましょう。You know, また行ってください. You know, please go there again, right? But in here again, we're talking about understanding. So you see it's sneaky because they are using the verb, how the verb sounds just to confuse you, but it doesn't make sense because we're talking about the action of to go somewhere, ね、また行く。どこかへ somewhere. And number three is すみません。一度聞きました。ね。First of all, the すみませんに一度聞きました doesn't really match. 一度聞きました is like, oh, I heard it once. I heard that before, you know? And すみません is apologizing. So it just completely does not make any sense. Maybe it's to trick you like 一度聞きました, you know, like I heard once, but not enough, you know? But yes, if you are not sure, just remember that もう一度お願いします can also mean もう一度言ってくださいね。ください instead of ください we say お願いします。もう一度お願いします。もう一度言ってください。Alright? So let's move on to the next question.
7番。
音楽がうるさいです。何と言いますか？
1、
もう少し小さくしてほしいんですけど、
2、
もう少しゆっくり話してください。
3、
もう少し小さいのはありませんか？
はい、so the situation 音楽がうるさいです。You can see here the person who is sitting next to the girl with the arrow is listening to music, and the music is actually, you know, quite loud to the point that she can hear it, right? So, 何と言いますか? What would she say? Number one was もう少し小さくしてほしいんですけど、ね? Which means もう少し is a little bit more, a little. 小さくして like make it a little like small, which means that make the sound small, right? 欲しい is like I would like. ですけど is like but, you know? Number two was もう少し a little bit more. ゆっくり話してください. Speak a little bit slower. It's not really the picture, right? Doesn't make sense. And number three was もう少し a little bit small or a little. 小さいのはありませんか? Don't you have a smaller one? 小さいのはありませんか? So again, doesn't make sense, right? So the answer was number one. Okay. もう少し小さくして欲しいんですけど。ね。So here again, this is kind of towards N4 level because it's missing the word 音楽、ね。Well, actually, 音をね、小さくする to make the sound lower ね。音を小さくしてほしいんですけど。So there's no 音, so it's just to confuse you. But 少し小さ くしてほしいとね、she's saying, I would like you to turn it down a little bit. Alright. I would also like to mention that deskedo is kind of a passive aggressive Japanese way of saying something, you know. As you can see, like she's clearly pissed off with the sound, right? So yeah, in Japanese, when we say nani nani deskedo, like you're still saying polite because this is polite, but the kedo here implies that it would kind of feel like, kind of feeling. So, hoshin deskedo. So anyway, it's just I think it's an interesting thing for you guys to keep in mind, you know, that the deskedo might be a passive aggressive Japanese person saying something. In this case, she is clearly not happy and she wants the person to do it, right? Number 2 is wrong because, you know, yukuri harashite kudasai doesn't make any sense, right? They're not talking to each other. Now, number 3, I would like to mention that chisai no wa arimasen ka? This is wrong because it doesn't match the picture, but this would be actually in a situation where, let's say, you were going shopping for a t-shirt, you know, and you really find something that you like and you try it on, but it's not small enough, like it's too big for you. So then you could say, もう少し小さいのはありませんか? Would you have it in a smaller size? 小さいのはありませんか? Wouldn't you have it, right? It's the negative here, ありませんか? But that would be a situation that this would be correct, but again, it does not match our picture.
問題4。
問題4は絵などがありません。文を聞いて1から3の中から一番いいものを一つ選んでください。
例。
お名前は ?1、
日本人です。
2、
田中一郎です。
3、
ありがとう。
Hi, so the answer was number 2. Tanaka Ichiro desu. Okay, so let's look one more time at the question. A person says, お名前は? Meaning, what's your name? Therefore, the answer would be Tanaka Ichiro desu. Meaning, my name is Tanaka Ichiro, right? We need a name because the question is asking for a name. Number 1 is wrong because he's saying, 日本人です. I'm Japanese, right? This would be correct if the question was, お国はどこですか? どちらですか? Right? Where is your country? Where are you from? But that's not the case. And number 3 is wrong because it says, ありがとう. Thank you, which does not make sense, right? Let's move on to the next one.
1番。
田中先生はどちらですか ?1、
はい、そうです。
2、
日本人です。
3、
図書館です。
Hi, so the answer is number 3. 図書館です. Library, right? The question was, 田中先生はどちらですか? Where is どちらですか? Remember, どちら is a polite way of どこですか, right? Where is Tanaka sensei? The teacher Tanaka, Mr. Tanaka, or the professor Tanaka. And the answer was 図書館です, meaning not it's a library, but he is at the library. It's kind of a different idea for you if you know, depending from when you translate from your mother tongue. But in Japanese, basically, 図書館です, we are saying the location, right? So that's why in English we would translate as he is at the library, but in Japanese, basically, どこですか? And so we are asking about the location, so therefore the answer would be a location. 図書館です. You know, I hope it makes sense, but that's the logic behind the answer. ね、図書館です. Wrong because it says, はい、そうです. Yes, that's wrong, which does not make sense from the question. And number 2 is 日本人です, right? Which also does not make sense because we're not asking about Tanaka sensei's nationality, we're asking about his location, right? Let's move on to the next one.
2番。弟さんは何歳ですか ?1、
今年15人です。
2、
今年15歳です。
3、
今年15回です。
Hi, number 2, the answer is 2. 今年15歳です。ね? So this year, 15 years old. The question was, 弟さんは何歳ですか? How old 何歳ですか is your brother. 弟 is younger, right? So how old is your younger brother? And the answer is 今年15歳です。Meaning that this year he's turning 15, right? He's still 14. Number 1 is wrong because it says 今年15人です。ね? This year, 15 people. ね? It does not make sense. This would be an answer for how many people, you had it at your birthday party. And then you say, well, this year I had 15 people. But it does not make sense with this question, right? And the number 3 is similar, but instead of 15 people, we are saying 15 times, right? 15回. 15回 is 15 times, so does not make sense, right? 今年15回です。Alright, so let's move on to the next one.
3番、
どちらがいいですか ?1、
これがいいです。
2、
ここにあります。
3、
これから行きます。
Hi, so the answer is number 1. これがいいです。ね? This is good, or this is the one that I want. Anyway, let's look at the question. A person says, どちらがいいですか? Which one do you want? ね? Which one do you prefer would be a better translation. どちらがいいですか? And the answer, これがいいです。This is good. This is what I want, right? I prefer this one. これがいいです。Number 2 is wrong because it says ここにあります. Oh, I have it here, or it is here. Does not make sense. And number 3 is これから行きます. I will go from now. I'm going from now, which also does not make sense. Alright, let's move on to the next one.
4番、明日、映画を見に行きませんか ?1、
ええ、行きません。
2、
ええ、行きましょう。
3、
ええ、そうです。
Hi, the answer number 4 is number 2. 行きましょう. Yes, let's go. So A says, 明日映画を見に来ませんか? Tomorrow, 明日映画を見に行く is to go watch a movie, right? So 行きませんか is like, wouldn't you like to go? So would you like to go watch a movie tomorrow? That's what A is saying, right? So B says, 行きましょう. Yes, let's go, right? That's the best answer. Number 1 was, 行きません. Like, yes, I don't go, right? Which doesn't even make sense. Number 3 would be right, for example, if you ask, go to the movie yesterday. Yes, そうです. I did. Let's move on to the next one.
5番、
あれ、今日は何日ですか ?1、
20日です。
2、
20、
3、
金曜日です。
はい、5番, the answer is 1. ね、number 1, 20日です。ね。Let me see. Today is, it's the 20th, right? 20日. So the question here is, あれ、今日は何日ですか? Like, oh, what day is today? Right? And then the answer is, like, well, let me see, let me think about it. 20日です is the 20th, right? So number 2 is very tricky. This one is a tricky one because number 2 is 20歳ですね. So 20歳 here is 20歳. So 20日 and 20歳 are kind of similar, right? That's why they're doing this. Which, by the way, you will see this pattern a lot in Inugo test. 20歳, 20日 is something that you need to know. 20歳 is always 20 years old. 20日 is the 20th day of the month. Okay? And number 金曜日です today's Friday, which when you say nang nichi, we are not asking about the days of the week. We are asking about the days of the month, okay? If you want to ask for the days of the week, it would be nang yobi desu ka? Ne? Kyou wa nang yobi desu ka? Therefore, the answer would be kinyobi desu. But here is nang nichi desu ka? So it's wrong. All right? Let's move on to the next one.
6番、
もう一杯どうですか ?1、
もう結構です。
2、
もう飲みました。
3、
もう終わるでしょ
はい、6番. The answer is ichi. Number 1. もう結構です. Like, it's enough. I'm fine. I'm satisfied. It's kind of hard to translate this in English. But anyway, the situation was, right? A person says, もう一杯どうですか? Ippai here is the quantity that we use for glasses of drink beverage, right? So, would you like to have one more drink? That is how we translate this. もう一杯どうですか? Would you like one more? A drink? And then the answer is もう結構です. Like, oh no, I had enough. You know, I'm fine. I'm satisfied. Number 2 is もう飲みました. Yes, I had it. I drank already, which does not make sense as an answer to when somebody's offering you a drink. And number 3 says もう終わるでしょ. Oh, it's gonna finish soon, which also does not make sense, right? This would be like, oh, is the movie about to finish? And then you could say, yes, it's about to finish soon, I believe, right? もう終わるでしょ. But again, in this case, no, because it's もう一杯どうですか? Like, would you have another drink? もう結構です. I'm satisfied. Thank you very much. Hi, so this is the end of our video and of this green test, okay? You might have noticed I usually color code the tests that we do. So this was the green one, is the third listening test that I have on the channel. All right, so this was part 4. The next one we're gonna have is the blue frame. So it's gonna be our 4th listening test practice, the Japanese proficiency test, and 5 in goal, right? Level 5. So you can check it out. I will do the listening test first, and then we do the explanation and script for the Mondai Ichi, Mondai Ni, Mondai San, and Mondai Yon. All the 4 parts with the script and the explanation. I hope these videos have been helping you prepare for the test and also, you know, to give you a better idea of basic Japanese to improve your, not only your knowledge about grammar, but also your, you know, speaking skills and understanding. All right, I'll see you on the next videos. それではまた。バイバイ。